Hey everyone, thanks for coming to our presentation. This is a beginner's guide to the conference. I'm Michelle Noorali, and speaking with me today is Karen Chu. I'll let Karen introduce herself first. Go ahead, Karen.
Hey, so I'm Karen Chu. I'm an open source community manager at Microsoft on the upstream container compute team. And I joined Microsoft via Deus. It's been 3 years now. And at this point, I've been to about 7 KubeCons.
And I'm Michelle Noorali. I'm an engineer at Microsoft. I also came in via an acquisition with Karen, so we go way back. I've attended a total of 9 KubeCons, and that's actually kind of why we wanted to talk to y'all today. We've seen the community and the conference grow so much, and it's an amazing event with lots to offer. And sometimes it can be easy to kind of miss some things if you're new, or be really overwhelmed if you're new. But we want to make sure that this conference is very welcoming, and as welcoming today as it was for us when we first started going. So we just want to talk to you about some lessons learned, tips and tricks, and things that you might want to keep an eye out for.
All right, so in today's one-on-one course, we're going to go over the following topics. We're going to talk about how to follow the code of conduct, tips around attending sessions, what CNCF projects are, how to engage with project maintainers, approaching the sponsor hall, what to expect in the hallway track, social events to check out, and things to think about if you want to consider submitting a talk in the future.
So first things first, the code of conduct. This is a foundational component of all Linux Foundation events. You can find the one for KubeCon if you go to the event website and hit the drop-down attend and then click code of conduct. Essentially, it says, be professional, make sure you have appropriate workplace behavior, follow your employer's guidelines, follow any applicable laws, and just generally be, professional. And and all harassment of any form is unacceptable, of course. These guidelines apply in both virtual and physical settings, on social media and on any really digital platform. If you are a witness or a victim to any violation, please contact any event staff and report what you've seen or witnessed. And you should rest assured that every staff member has taken incident response training, so they understand how to deal with incidents. And in the future, if you have any concerns regarding the event before the event takes place, just be sure to contact the people that are listed on the website. This includes the conference staff, and they have emails and phone numbers listed on the website for you. And so, they take these things seriously. They want to make sure that the event is safe for everyone and a good, comfortable space to be in, for us to all learn and get to know each other. So be sure to take advantage of these things. All right, Karen, talk to us about attending sessions.
Can you go to the next slide?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, we know at first glance the schedule looks super overwhelming, but don't worry. A good way to start is to look at the schedule by the tracks and figure out what general topics might interest you. So on the left side of the slide, you can see a screenshot of what the filters look like. This can be found, sorry, it is on the right side of the slide, of the slide. Yeah, so that's what you want to look for. Don't forget to check out the 101 track, which I have starred. That's where this session falls. All this content has been curated for newcomers, so it's a good place to get yourself oriented, and then also look out for the beginner level sessions that you can also filter for under content experience level, which is also starred. Yeah, and then another quick tip is to utilize the Schedule tool. It's a great way to build out your schedule and figure out where you might have some overlapping sessions, and just figure out what your day is going to look like. And then as for attending sessions themselves, the main takeaway we have for you is to take advantage of the Q&A. Speakers will be available for Q&A during the duration of their session, and so feel free to come up and share questions you have as they come up, and just remember to follow the code of conduct. If you are interested in slides, check out the session page on Sketch. Speakers will be sharing their slides there, so you can reference it after. And if you miss a session or want to rewatch something, all the sessions will be recorded and posted to YouTube, usually within a few days, if not sooner.
It's always awesome to see everything go up super quick online in case you missed anything. So just some advice from us from personally attending sessions. I want to be really adamant about, like, don't be afraid of asking what an acronym stands for. We have a lot of them in the cloud native community, and they might even overlap with some other acronyms that you have at your internally at your company that you work at, or in the industry or niche that you're involved in. So just be sure to ask if you're not sure what it is. Karen, you want to take this next one?
Yeah, so when you're asking questions, help people understand the angle you're coming from. You can share things like, what you're trying to solve, what kind of position you're in, who you're trying to solve for, and just keep in mind that when you're asking questions, you might be asking questions that others haven't yet thought of that could apply to them.
Yeah, definitely. And if you normally take notes at physical conferences, like I do, try seeing if it's helpful in this virtual setting too. A lot of the times when we're at home or, not in the office or not at the actual event, we get a little lazy and we're like, we're going to watch this like it's TV. But just that doesn't always help you take everything that you can away from it. So if you do take notes, try doing it in this virtual setting and see if it helps you.
Yeah. And then also, we know it's a virtual conference and it's super easy to get distracted. So we just recommend closing, other browser windows and other applications. If you do have any work that you have to attend to, consider scheduling some dedicated pockets of time to address that throughout the day. Cool. So next, CNCF projects. Yes, I'll talk a little bit more about this. Throughout the conference, you might hear the term CNCF project a ton, and let's take some time to discuss what that means. But before that, let's talk about what CNCF even is real quick. So CNCF stands for Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and the foundation's mission is to make cloud native computing ubiquitous, and one way we do this is by taking on the stewardship of projects. So as an open source project develops in the ecosystem, they may get donated to CNCF as vendor neutral IP. And within CNCF, there are 3 different levels of projects. So as they mature and gain adoption, they level up. They go from sandbox to incubating to graduated. And if you're interested in learning more about the CNCF projects, or CNCF and its projects, we recommend checking out the links that we have on the slide.
All good things to check out. Don't be overwhelmed. The case studies on the CNCF website are amazing. The landscape gives you an idea of the breadth of projects that are in this space. The technology radar will give you an idea of how end users are thinking about specific verticals of technology like CI/CD or security, and then what things they're adopting and using, and even recommend. So something new that we're trying out. Definitely check that out. And just to kind of harp on the vendor neutral IP, a bit about the CNCF, this is something that helps folks get over the legal hurdles of donating or contributing code or documentation to a project that isn't owned by and mainly run by their own company. So you may also hear the term TOC and CNCF SIGs a lot, also good acronyms, but just to kind of expand on that, TOC stands for Technical Oversight Committee, and SIGs stands for Special Interest Groups. So the Technical Oversight Committee is a group of about 11 people, and they are responsible for the technical vision of the CNCF. They also vote on the projects that come into the CNCF at all the levels. CNCF SIGs are focused on particular areas like app delivery or observability or networking or security. So they have their own like verticals. And these are groups of domain experts that build their own guidance and documentation around what is going on in terms of in the CNCF and the broader ecosystem in their vertical, but also they advise the technical oversight committee on the projects that are submitted to the CNCF. So they're very key to this whole organization. Liz Rice, who is the TOC chair, will be doing a more in-depth session on the TOC and the SIGs, and I recommend attending her session to learn a lot more about this stuff. And more information about the SIGs and the TOC can be found on the CNCF TOC GitHub repository. So if you want to join in or figure out when they meet, all of that information is listed and linked on the GitHub repo. And throughout the day, you'll also, or throughout the next few days, you'll also see SIG sessions. So there are Kubernetes SIGs that are Kubernetes project specific, and then there are CNCF SIGs, which are CNCF broader groups that focus on those verticals that I was talking about. So just check those out. There's introduction sessions if you just want to get a glimpse of what people are working on, and there's longer deep dive sessions. I think those are more for like deeper discussions for the SIG group members to meet and hash things out face to face generally. So both good things to look out for. All right, let's talk about project maintainers. So you'll also hear the term project maintainers quite a bit. And this is, if you're not familiar with open source or this kind of ecosystem and environment, let me just explain for a second like what a project maintainer is. So project maintainers are responsible for the code base and documentation of a particular project. They review and contribute code and documentation. They so they will like fix bugs, review and contribute features. They'll also help with building and releasing the project, any maintenance, ongoing maintenance work, just like upkeep, reviewing and fixing security related concerns. So they're the keepers of the code base essentially. And they're the people you want to go talk to if you have any questions or if you want to like propose something.
Yeah. So earlier on the subject of attending sessions, I mentioned that there are different tracks. I now want to focus on specifically the maintainer track. So again, it's START. CNCF projects are on the maintainer track. There are intro and deep dive sessions like there are for the SIG sessions, and you can filter by the maintainer track sessions to find them. And also be on the lookout for the project pavilion. So here you can find project maintainers of various CNCF incubating and graduated projects. So there will be project-specific booths essentially, and depending on the team, there will be maintainers on standby to help answer questions. And some of the projects will also be doing office hours, so be on the lookout for that. Anything else, Michelle? Any questions that people should ask?
Yeah, well, on the project pavilion bit, I think like I always enjoy that. So I hope folks take advantage of it. I'm a maintainer and I really enjoy standing at the booth and talking to people who are thinking about using our project or using our project and just want to have a quick session, just even me, like I love hearing what people are working on and love understanding how they're using the project and what gaps they see. But then also as someone who uses a bunch of these projects, I love having the opportunity to go and meet the maintainers and just say hi, like it's so nice to put a face to a GitHub handle. So when you do meet people, share a little bit about yourself, how their project can help you, ask how to get started, and ask how you can get involved, because a lot of times there's community meetings or Slack channels or other ways of being involved long term in case you have questions or want to just contribute or something like that.
All right, so next we're going to talk about approaching the sponsor hall. We know at first glance this is also going to look daunting, but the main thing to take away is that the sponsor hall is the perfect opportunity to chat with companies and people in the ecosystem. So if you're looking for anything specific in terms of like services or solutions, this would be the perfect time to have those conversations. And since this is a virtual event, we know the interaction is obviously going to be different than normal. So the way we're doing it this time around is the sponsors will have a live chat feature at their booth where you can hold one-on-one conversations with someone. And when it comes to asking questions, we're still pushing the same thing in terms of like things you should bring up, right? More things you can talk about are, aside from like what you're working on and what you do, like share if you have a specific problem that you're trying to solve, or if you just want to hear what's out there, right? Like if you're just here to learn. Another thing is to ask others what problems they're working on, why something is a problem in the first place even, and how they're trying to solve it.
Yeah, and don't forget to check out the smaller booths. The big booths are great, but people are innovating at all levels. So this is your chance to get in early on what people are working on, and they're really cool new projects. And also there's a booth crawl. So don't forget to check that out. Unfortunately, we aren't going to be having any cute beverages and snacks, which I always enjoy. But this is a dedicated window of time to check out the sponsor hall without any competing activities like sessions or keynotes.
Yeah. And then lastly, so swag real quick, it's just like our industry term to say giveaways, essentially. They're really just meant to help you remember interactions that you've had. So obviously that's going to be different around this time around, but be on the lookout for virtual swag. So for example, I designed some crossword puzzles and word searches for the Microsoft booth. So check that out. I'm just really curious to see like what creative forms of swag people have come up with this time around.
Same here. All right, let's talk about the hallway track. So this is also an industry term. If you go to a lot of conferences, you've probably heard of this. But if you're not familiar, hallway track is how we refer to basically forgoing the sessions, watching the recordings, and just hanging out in the sponsor hall and networking and meeting up with people from the community. So we'll basically chat, catch up, work on things, sometimes even on code, which is cool. If you are, networking with people, here are some things you can share. Make sure you tell people that this is your first time attending KubeCon. Everybody gets really excited when you say that. Talk about what you're looking for, how much exposure you've had to CNCF technologies, if you've contributed to anything, if you've just read some docs, if you tried something out. That's always very helpful. And also share your professional background, what you're working on, who your employer is, and projects you've contributed to in the past. I think there's a Slack channel for this event. Karen, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the main form of communication, at least text-wise, is going to be on Slack. So make sure to sign up for Slack. You should be able to find a link in the email that you get for the events, and it will be organized by track-specific channels, and also be on the lookout for extra channels for networking. And if you're not already familiar with Slack, definitely check it out. Our community, the CNCF, Kubernetes community, heavily relies on Slack for real-time communications.
All right, the fun stuff, social events.
Yeah, so during a normal physical event, social events are obviously a great way to meet people. Nonetheless, they're still pretty important and valuable to participate in virtually. When you're on a virtual conference, right, or when you're at a virtual conference, it can be super draining just to be on the computer all day and super focused. So just kind of take these virtual social events as a reminder to take a break, right? And social events to me also communicate the kind of culture that a community is really trying to foster. So I would highly recommend checking out the events that we have organized.
Yeah, and there are quite a few of them listed here. I'm excited about this Games Lounge, sponsored by Red Hat. There's a virtual job board sponsored by AWS, musical performance by Michael Hicks, and drag queen bingo. So pumped about that.
Yeah, and huge shout out to the events team for organizing all of this for us.
Cool. Yes, they're always great in person, and I'm very excited about the virtual ones too.
Yeah. So let's take a moment to look forward now. If you're interested in speaking at a future conference, you'll want to consider submitting a CFP. And what is a CFP? So it stands for Call for Papers, and anyone can submit. This is the process that is used to select talks for KubeCon conferences. And these talks are reviewed by a program committee made up of community members, and together they work to build out the conference schedule. So some general outlines to think about, or general guidelines to think about when it comes to CFPs, are that sessions are meant to cover open source technologies and should be vendor neutral. So as a speaker, we're here to push innovation and not necessarily to sell anything. And there are a lot of different formats you can consider. So you can consider doing a regular presentation, a panel, lightning talks, and take your pick.
Awesome. And so Karen and I have both done keynotes as well as sessions, like regular sessions at KubeCon, CloudNativeCon, and other open source conferences. And I was actually a KubeCon conference chair in 2017. So both of us have experience writing and reviewing conference proposals. And just I've read thousands of them, so I wanted to maybe pull out a few bits to think about before submitting. So when you're thinking about submitting or when you're crafting your CFP, make sure you clearly articulate the problem area in 1 to 2 sentences. So what problem are you solving? Set the scene, 1 to 2 sentences, super brief. And also talk about what the audience will take away. So your conference, your CFP will have a section on it called abstract, and these are the things that you want to include in the abstract. And this is also the thing that will be posted on Sketch and on the conference schedule, just as something that the audience members will see in order to figure out if your conference session is something that they would enjoy and take away and learn from. So it's kind of your pitch. So you also want to include your expertise and experience in the area. Did you build this tool in technology? Did you use it and really hurt and learn a lot along the way? These kinds of stories really resonate with the community. And also talk about how your project or your conference or your project or your conference session or your use case or whatever you're talking about fits into the ecosystem and how your session will help the ecosystem grow and learn. And also make sure you ask people to review. I always send my CFPs to folks that I work with just to kind of glance at, give me any feedback. And I'm always happy to read other people's CFPs too before they submit. It takes a few minutes, and it's nice to just get another set of eyes on these things. Excuse me.
Yeah, and as part of that review process as well is you can go and check out previous abstracts as examples. So what I will do sometimes is go to an older KubeCon schedule page and just look through the sessions there. Because obviously those are the ones that got selected, right? So they serve as good examples of what I should be sharing in my own CFPs. Yeah.
For sure. Great advice. Okay, and some parting thoughts. Be sure to stay involved after the event. These conferences are just meant to be a kickstart for you to get involved with the community, meet people, learn stuff. But you can stay involved with local meetups in your area or online. You can also go to Kubernetes Community Days. Those are mini KubeCon CloudNativeCon conferences but geared at local communities. There's also a newsletter you can follow and submit to called Kube Weekly Newsletter. CNCF webinars are held very frequently, a few times a month, and you can actually check those out for some great information on CNCF projects. And the Cloud Native Foundation Twitter handle also has great real-time information about projects, events, and just the community at large.
Yeah. And circling back real quick to like doing talks, right? I think local meetups are actually a great place to get started. If you are nervous about doing talks in front of a huge audience, that's a good place to like test out talks and kind of see what the interest is there and get feedback. So I'd highly recommend that. Yeah, and if you have any questions throughout the conference or even after, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Karen H. Chu.
And I'm Michelle Noorali.
Cool.
And we could totally take Q&A, or we could totally do Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in, and we'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.